part of the charm is that you get lost there, right? And
Yeah.
I don't really get lost places. And to top it off, I generally come to places a little more prepared now, and I'm a bit smarter now than I was when I was younger. And it's like I have a lot of these sorts of adventure-y sorts of things when I was younger, and most adventures come from doing something kind of dumb. And most sketchy situations come from a lack of preparedness.
You hear all the bull about marketing every day. Make your money in your sleep. My new offer is crushing it. My guru could beat up your guru. It's time to go right to the source and get the truth about marketing. With your host, the founder of copychief.com, Kevin Rogers.
Hey, welcome back to The Truth About Marketing. It's Kevin Rogers here. Really excited for this interview today with my buddy Zach Swinehart is in the house. What's up, Zach?
Hi.
Thanks for being here, pal. You and I have a great history together. You've been a very significant part of my emergence from straight up freelancer to
dollar and lead shot caller.
That's right. Product creator and now community organizer. That sounds like I volunteer.
Yeah.
But I want to tell everybody a little bit about what you do, and because I'm telling you, I couldn't be more excited about somebody's evolution in this business than I am yours. So let's talk just a little bit about what you do in very basic terms and how you could serve somebody listening to this podcast.
Okay. The most basic terms of what I do is that I do websites typically for internet marketers and podcasters, as well as normal small businesses.
Yeah. What's normal?
Like boring. I was going to say boring small businesses, but I felt like normal was a little more polite.
That's kind. You're getting good at this self-editing as you talk. And let's just call it out. I mean, you're working with some big names. You work with John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. I want to say Lewis Howes.
Fields. I haven't worked with Lewis Howes.
Okay.
Did some work with Jonathan Fields. I've worked with Amy Porterfield. I'm forgetting all my name drops. I usually have a bunch. Oh, James Wedmore. That's a good name drop.
Awesome. Yeah.
I have all sorts of name drops. Sorry to any name drops I'm forgetting. I worked with Kevin Rogers before.
Boom. Wow.
Kevin Rogers.
Man. That could be a whole episode right there. I mean, that must have been amazing.
But yeah, like lots of big internet marketing, sales pages, podcast sites, membership sites, that sort of thing.
Yeah, great, awesome, and your stuff is it really pops off the page. You get an amazing touch. So you're very gifted designer. I know you work very hard, but I think the real inspiration people are going to get from this episode is your lifestyle now. And so you and I met. It must have been 2000. When was Sam? Was it 12?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it might have even been 11. Like, I think it might have been 4 years ago.
Wow.
I'm not sure, but it's been a long time. It's been a really long time.
Yeah. And so you and I met there. That was the first time I'd ever spoke on stage at an event. And you and I went on to create what was one of my first products based on the 60-second sales hook, what would become the 60-second sales hook. And at the time, you were working still at a day job, and your single goal, as I recall it, was to just get free of that job, yeah?
I can't remember, because my business history is like, at first, I was doing the business full-time, and then I got burnt out and got a job. And then I kind of shifted my business model and then quit the job after doing the business model the way that I did like. But I can't remember if back then I was still doing it full-time.
Yeah, you pretty much
or if
were.
I was at a job for it. But in any case, I was doing this business and I wasn't probably enjoying it, so we could at least say that much.
Right. And so cut to today, you're sitting now, right? You're probably in a cabana somewhere. You're sitting in Puerto Rico just because you decided that's where you wanted to be today. And if somebody goes to your Facebook wall, I tell you, it's so inspiring, dude. Like to my eyes, I'll give you my Facebook. You know, we're more than Facebook friends, right? But we all like keep tabs on each other through Facebook. Yeah. So from my view, I'm like, Zach, I knew you got free from your job and you were really kicking ass in your business, working with these high profile folks. And then the next thing I know is that I'm seeing pictures of you like everywhere in the world. It's like somebody took you on an adventure tour and propped you up in front of all these bucket list places to take photos of you, right?
Yeah, it's actually just all green screened. So.
That's what it looks like, man. It's like nobody could really be doing this. And so, I've told, not to sound older or at all condescending here, but you're a young guy. How old are you now?
25.
You're 25, and I've told people your age or younger before. I've begged them when they had the opportunity and were a little unsure about what to do, with their life. And I'd say, listen to me. Just go travel. I've said to friends, 21, 22, do me a favor. Buy a one-way ticket to Europe, pack a backpack, and that's all you need to know right now. Trust me. Your life's not going to fall apart. You're not going to get stabbed probably. You'll be fine. And they go, yeah, you're right. And they'll get all inspired. And then, I'll hear from them a week later, like, yeah, I ended up taking that job. And then they're still at that job, 4 years later, and they're totally unhappy. So now they're 26 and they're just as miserable as some 56-year-old person who's towards the end of their unhappy career.
The end of their life.
Yeah, or career. At least they're getting ready to retire so they could go, maybe get an RV or something, right? But you said, screw that. I'm not waiting around to live. I'm going to see the world right now. So tell me how that happened and how you pulled it off.
Okay. And it has been, I think that what you were talking about is spot on, because so much of this trip, it was actually really surprising how little effort it took to make the necessary shifts to my business model to be able to kind of have things work while I'm traveling. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, it's been really cool how it wasn't actually that hard. For how significant of a lifestyle change it is, it was not proportionally difficult. You'd expect something so hugely different would be equally hugely difficult, right? But it wasn't actually that tough. So what had happened, I think that when people ask me what my favorite part of the travels is and stuff like that, the real answer isn't the the kind of cut and dry sexy answer of that one time I did this cool thing.
Right.
Usually the real answer of what's been cool about this trip is how transformative it's been for me emotionally and psychologically and stuff, because what had happened is back in May area of this year, I, through a particularly painful breakup, had learned that, so many of these kind of personality things that I was working on for myself with regards to looking for validation from other people all the time, which, as you know, my sort of comedy and stuff like that, a lot of that can come from that same thing of wanting to get validated because it can make someone laugh. It's kind of validating.
Yeah. Right.
So I'd learned through this particularly painful breakup that basically, even though I had all this confidence in my skills, I didn't actually have any self-worth, and I hadn't my entire life. I've always been really confident in my intelligence or my business skills or my humor or whatever, but that's a whole separate thing from actually feeling like I'm good enough as a person. And so upon realizing that, I started doing some work with this woman I met at Tropical Think Tank named Teresa, who's a life coach, and she does a lot of work with people like myself. And so what was happening is I was doing all this hard work with her and spending a lot of hours each day, meditating and journaling and going to yoga and just doing all this new crap and learning about this whole component of emotional life, I guess, that I never really knew about. And then it was I was making this internal progress, and I was thinking it'd be fun to go to Europe or whatever. But it had been a couple months of doing all this work, and I felt like a whole different person on the inside, but everything externally was still the same. I still lived in this stupid Littleton apartment, which Littleton is just this... my apartment's cool. Or rather, my apartment was cool. I no longer am there anymore. But I was still in this suburb in Colorado, a bit south of Denver. So I wasn't even by the cool stuff in Colorado. I was just by the boring old people with their kids and stuff. The Kevin Rogers.
Yeah, my neighborhood. My neighborhood.
And so it was all this stuff had changed internally, but my external circumstances were still the same. And I do this thing where when I book myself solid, I tend to get just overwhelmed, because I like to leave some flex days in the week for work that gets carried over and stuff. When I don't do that and I'm having to work really long hours, weekends, I just get burnt out, and I stop booking new business until I can get through the busy period, because sometimes it drags over and I don't know when it's going to be done. So in the wake of that tropical think tank trip, because I was gone for a couple weeks, I had booked myself totally solid through June. Sorry for all the planes going by. I'm not just hanging out in the bathroom flushing the toilet. They are planes, if you can hear them.
I think you're on the run is what's going on here.
I booked myself solid through June, and got that overwhelmed thing where I didn't book anything else out. So it was early July, and I was kind of like looking at my calendar because I was like, oh, it could be kind of fun to go to Europe. So I was looking at like October, November area for when I might have some availability to go for a few weeks, and I was like, oh shit, I could just go like right now. So I just booked a one-way ticket to Paris for a week and a half later, and then went.
Wow.
So that was cool.
Okay, so now the other thing that happens with business owners is, like you said, we get into this, we buy into this idea of this promise of this lifestyle. And then we get here and we realize, oh man, it's so much work, especially if you're a freelancer or service provider like you and I are, and like you just described, somehow projects go, they get scope creep and all kinds of things happen, and it just throws your calendar out of whack. And so most entrepreneurs I know don't feel like they could pick up and go to Paris anytime. And so, I'm really interested to hear about the shift that you made or how you managed that. But I want to get clear. Was it still just you?
No.
You had people working for you, VAs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's not to say if it was just me, I couldn't have done it, but it would have been a lot different.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of what's been enjoyable about this trip is that, well, let me think of how I want to structure it in a way that makes sense. Well, I'll say what I was going to say because it's weird to just abruptly stop saying something. So a lot of what's been cool about this trip is that I haven't had to work much because I've been more selective about the types of projects that I've been working on. Mm-hmm. But even though I had staff and stuff, while having that staff allowed me to go from working like 60 or 80-hour weeks to working like 10-hour weeks or something, if I hadn't had the staff and I wanted to do it, what I would have done is I would have still done my online in a day process where I like work with a client on Skype and crank stuff out, and I would just work with fewer clients, and I'd have it where I'm vacationing for 3 days and I'm working on sites for like 2 or 3 days or whatever. But I could work on those from anywhere.
Right.
But really, the shift that I made was pretty simple, actually, which is that part of it is giving more ownership and more trust to my staff. So I have my developer, Gina, who I've been working with for probably like a year-ish. And when I look at the types of clients that I work with, because I do that work with Entrepreneur on Fire and I get a lot of referrals from them, and because I have this whole niche of financial planners that I'm also quite popular in, it's like I have these two, it's like that whole 80-20 thing where 80% of my business is either a podcast website or a financial planner website. And most podcast websites are similar scope. Most financial advisor sites are similar scope. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what enabled me to make this shift was I found a really good designer, which is what I'd been struggling with for a long time, was finding somebody who's a better designer than me, because that's people hire me for my design skills at the end of the day. And so after finding a good designer, which was where the buck was stopping with me, and putting a little more trust into my developer, and then looking at that 80-20 principle thing and saying, okay, well, Gina can pretty much take a podcast site or a financial advisor site start to finish. It's the complex membership sites or sites that require a lot of custom PHP development. Like, it's really it's the fancy stuff that requires me. So I either stop taking on those projects or I just charge a lot more for them. And by making that shift and by talking, basically what I did, when I left for my trip, I didn't want to like say, oh, I'm leaving forever, because who would make that kind of commitment, put that kind of pressure on themselves. Basically, I was like, I'm either going to go for 3 weeks and it's going to be a vacation, or if I can figure out a way to make it work, it'll maybe be more like 3 months, because that's when I have to run into visa issues. But now technically I can just be forever because of visa wizardry and going to not just one place. So anyway, what I did is I just had 3 clients. They were, I think, 1 podcast and 2 financial advisors. I booked 1 a week for the time that I was gone, and I spoke with them in advance and let them know what the deal was, and I essentially just gave them a discount because I was like, hey, your whole website process could be terrible and it'll suck. And if it does, I will happily, once I'm back, just redo it myself and stuff. But you're taking a little bit of risk with me trying out this new process. So I gave him like $700 off or something like that.
Interesting.
To just try it. And it worked well. Who would have thought that you could trust an employee who had worked for you for a year to do their job?
Yeah, right. And so you were transparent with the prospect about what you're up to here.
Yes. And I'm really, really glad that I was, because if I had tried to just play it cool and make everything work.
You'd been panicking.
Yeah. And it wouldn't, I mean, so Europe, the time shift isn't too bad. Because like I'm about to go to Thailand in a few days, and that's almost 12 hours.
Right.
So I'm gonna, like, I've heard that working from Thailand's tough because you're gonna have to work nights. So I'll have to do it where I'm doing calls at like 9 or 10 p.m. Whereas Europe's, depending on where you're at, more like 6 or 7 hours or something like that. But regardless, trying to work that time shift and trying to work the shitty Wi-Fi, I'm sorry that I'm cursing, trying to work the inferior Wi-Fi that you have in certain places, or the lack of Wi-Fi, like just trying to work all those things without being clear that that's what's going on.
Right.
That would have been tough. And so, yeah, I mean, I was just really straightforward, because Gina hadn't been doing that project management role. She had been just doing development. And it's like I was thrusting her into this whole new role.
Right.
And so, yeah, so everyone knew what was going on, and that's why I'm so glad, because that's why they get their discount. They get a free $700 because they're just being a guinea pig, and they were fine with that.
Right.
Because I gave them the option of waiting. I mean, like, the thing that I don't want to give people who are, like, on the fence about trying something like this an excuse to just say, oh, it won't work for me. But one of the reasons it worked so seamlessly for me is that I'm fortunate enough to be busy. I'm fortunate enough to be in demand by my prospects. So, like, people want to work with me. And at the end of the day, if someone's given the choice, hey, you can work with me right now while I'm gone, or you can wait 3 weeks to 3 months for me to get back from my TBD vacation, most people would prefer to get to work with me over not. So they would be okay with having to potentially, have some of that stuff come up in exchange for a discount and getting to work with me sooner.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense.
Right.
I feel like I'm rambling about it.
No, it's good. It's an interesting, because, here's the thing, is I don't want to do one of these shows where I go, Zach just decided, and then he went, and then like nothing else mattered, Because
I mean, there have been a lot of difficulties and a lot of challenges.
Yeah, because people get this false idea, and then they get closer to it, and they realize there are these variables, and that's BS, right? So I'd rather, it's interesting. I want to talk more about the things you've seen and those amazing moments that make it all worth it. But I'm, glad that you're sharing the actual details of it. That you can't do it. Like you said, it's not that you couldn't have done it alone. But so here are the big takeaways so far. You didn't lie to anybody. You didn't try to get away with anything. You just, were very honest with people. And look, we're in a business where we're working with other entrepreneurs. I'm sure they're all happy that you're getting to do this. And it's a good deal to take a little risk if they trust you and they know that you'll make good on your promise. And it's not like do or die. They have a launch coming up, 2 weeks after you're done with the site, and they're like, everything has to be perfect. If the circumstances are right and you're just really honest with people, chances are they're going to be really cool with it if you're willing to give something to like a $700 discount. That's a pretty cool deal. Exactly. So be transparent, hire good people and trust them. As long as you arm them with what they need to do good work, chances are they'll excel. And we all know, or you should know, from all the great business books out there about leadership and things, the more responsibility you give to people, the more pride they'll take in their work. And I love that you said, it's caused you to put a premium on yourself and your time. So if somebody really wants Zach now to sit down with them and work directly on a site, there's a premium for that. And the other thing that you maybe didn't do on purpose, but has been very helpful to have constant lead flow, is that you niched yourself by, sort of the good fortune, or, certainly you earned it, but getting in with John and having him, being, he's a leader of podcasts and everybody wants to be him. So there are a lot of people are, starting podcasts and building sites. So that's an awesome lead source and the financial advisor. So those are the big takeaways sort of logistically to me, like how to make some things you can start thinking of if you're going, that's what I want. I just want to be able to travel. The whole promise is that I could literally do this from a laptop, seemingly anywhere. But those are the things you got to kind of have in place to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think your takeaways are accurate. Because really, this trip, I think that sometimes what makes the idea of world travel sexy is like you drop everything, you have no concerns or worries anymore, and you just go travel, and that's it.
Right.
Which number one is boring. Like I'm already more or less bored.
Huh.
Just like straight up just seeing things. Like I'm like, oh hey, there's an old church that looks like all the other freaking old churches that I've seen in all the other.
I'm not even going to post this one. People are going to start rolling their eyes at me.
Yeah. But this whole thing was kind of like this, a little bit of an experiment to just see if because a lot of this work I was doing on myself was like rewiring these old thought processes and stuff. And I was
sort of
like,
limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah, I wonder if this whole thing that I define as what working life and just life has to be, I wonder if that's just wrong, and if that's just something I've been feeding myself, and if I could just live life differently, and if it could just work, and then it has. So it's my life is more or less the same. It's just different,
right?
Which I guess is the definition of it not being the same. But
it's still you though. Like you didn't have to. You're working on yourself, and there's parts of yourself you want to develop, but it's not like you had to become some different person or live vastly different existence than you did before.
Yeah,
it's you with the cooler backdrop.
Yeah, it's me with the green screen. That's all it is.
All right. So, what are some of the amazing? So, you go to Paris. You think this will either be 3 weeks or 3 months. Where does it go from there?
So I actually didn't like Paris at all because it's like a really bad place to go after a breakup. Is something you'll learn because it's like this like super romantic city.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh hey, there's some couples enjoying the Eiffel Tower. That looks fun. It's a good thing I'm here alone. So yeah, I was actually only in Paris for a few days. What I've enjoyed the most about this traveling is that it's very rare that I'll make travel plans in advance. And because I'm traveling alone, it's kind of fun because I'll just be somewhere and be like, this place is dumb, I want to leave, and then I could just leave to just go to a different country. Like this whole country is dumb.
Sounds like Homer Simpson. Dumb country.
Yeah. So yeah, I was at Paris first and went to the Louvre and stayed at a hostel and all this nice new culture shocky sort of stuff. And like, I tried to speak some French sometimes. So that was pretty cool. I took a night train down from Paris through Nice, which is south of France, which south of France is just southern France, but they call it south of France, even though it's not south of France. It's just south in France. Anyway, southern France is where Nice is. And took a train, like a night train through there. And the night train was really funny because it was kind of like 6 coffins stacked into like a very small space. Like you couldn't, if you were on your bunk bed, because it was 3 bunk beds high in each car, and then there were 2 rows of 3 bunk beds. You couldn't actually fully sit up. You could incline yourself to like a 30-degree angle. Otherwise, your head would hit the bed like above you. Wow. So I took that night train down, and it was really cool, other than the claustrophobia, because you go along like the whole Italian coastline and stuff. And I went to Vernazzo, which is in the Cinque Terre, that's so wrong. It's wrong pronunciation. But I went to Vernazza, and that's like, it's really cool because it's like this, each of those 5 cities is in like this little cove. And I assume you don't want me to outline every single place I've been.
No, I just want to hear the highlights of how it, like when was it clear it was going to go beyond 3 weeks, and how long did it last? And like, what made you decide to go from one place to the other? So
Paris, I got sick of, so I left that place. Vernazza, I was only there for a couple nights anyway. So basically, I had like these 5 goals I laid out for the trip. I'll have to remember them. One of them was do a lot of yoga. Another one was have sex with random people. Nice. Another one was like meet friends. Another one,
meet new friends or connect.
Meet new friends. Connect with old friends too, but like just meet cool new people in general.
So have sex with some of them, but not others.
Yeah, just like just of the pool of new people I've met. Not all.
What was your criteria for either engaging sexually with them or not?
Probably like one of them is what type of reproductive organs they had. So like if they had the male reproductive organs,
so you're very picky. Okay,
I'm very selective about what reproductive organs I'm okay with. Sorry, Kevin. I'm just not.
It's very old school of you, but
not very new age accepting. But yeah, so I had these goals, and and it's cool because all of them, even though I forgot the other two apparently right now, have been more or less met. And so I was just in Vernazzo for a few days because I was going to this yoga retreat on Sardinia, which is an island in Italy. It's like kind of in the west of the Mediterranean, I think. And that was where I got to fulfill the sex goal for the record, was in the Sardinia island. And that was really, so it's like, this whole thing has been like eat, pray, love, by the way. Except with me instead of Jessica Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Jessica Roberts. Julia Roberts?
Gosh, why do I always call her Jessica Roberts? Yeah, instead of Julia Roberts. / Jessica Roberts. But yeah, so I went to that yoga retreat, which was really cool. And I didn't end up doing that much yoga there, but it was just a really cool experience. And again, I don't know how many highlights you want of this whole trip.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've seen pictures of you at Stonehenge, it just all these amazing places. And so, did it become? I have another friend who I actually just spent a couple of days with, who's an amazing world traveler. This guy's literally been everywhere. He's performed comedy on all but one continent, I think.
Cool.
And so I know for him, he prides himself on not doing any of the touristy. He doesn't look at travel guides or any of that stuff, right? And he was telling a funny story about being in Shanghai and getting caught up in this street scam that they do, where they invite you to a cultural tea testing, and they say, "Oh no, you come meet new friends," and it's funny because it's so like what you were saying. He's been on the road for 30 years or so. But he was like, that's one of the things I want to do is you stop being so judgmental and make more friends, or stop being so guarded. And so he agrees to go to this thing, and they sit down and they give him all these different teas, and they kind of explain what the tea is and how it's good for your body and these things. And then they hand him like a $100 bill, and that's the whole. And he realizes right there he's kind of been scammed. And then they give you this like red tassel because they're basically tagging you so that other people on the street who run the scam will know that you've already been taken and not to try. And so, so he's a comic, so he gets on stage that night and he's
perfect material.
Yeah, talking about it with the crowd. And he said the second he said the words cultural tea testing, half the crowd of they're all expats were like, no,
Nice.
And so he's bonding with all of them after it, and he's like, some of them were taken for $300, $250, and they go, you're kind of a big guy, and that's probably why they didn't push their luck with you,
They have that in Thailand for like the mafia will charge you like $1,000 for a beer, and because they're the mafia, you kind of have to.
Wow. So you'll just be in some bar, you don't know the rules or whatever, and next thing you know, it's clear that you need to pay this bill, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So what about stuff like that? Have you felt? I mean, staying in hostels, like that to me is a little. I don't know. I love the spirit of it, but I really dig having a lock on my door. I mean, have there been any frightening encounters?
I think I heard the people in the hotel room next to me like hitting each other, like spousal abuse yesterday, but I don't know which spouse was abusing the other. That was frightening. But that was at the Marriott in Puerto Rico, like a nice hotel.
Yeah.
No, there actually haven't been that many frightening things. I've been in some weird situations, but I think it's like what I've thought about a lot. And I did this video in Venice where I was talking about, I think just how I don't really get lost anymore because I have like a watch with a compass on it, and I have my phone with like GPS and stuff, and I can get walking directions anywhere. And it's like you go somewhere like Venice, and like part of the charm is that you get lost there, right? And
yeah.
I don't really get lost places. And to top it off, I generally come to places a little more prepared now, and I'm a bit smarter now than I was when I was younger. And it's like I have a lot of these sorts of adventure-y sorts of things when I was younger, and most adventures come from doing something kind of dumb. And most sketchy situations come from a lack of preparedness. I mean, like, I fell for the shell game scam in Paris, like the one where you've got the cups with the ball under it.
Right.
But, like, I got taken for, like, $10 or whatever.
Right.
But I haven't really had any sketchy things, I think, because if I start to see something sketchy, I just don't go that way or something. I don't. It's been really weird, because part of the spiritual side of what I've been doing is, like, not having that judgment and stuff, and people are people, everyone's got stories and things like that. And I've just been overwhelmed by how kind and helpful and great everybody has been that I've met.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It seems weird. But yeah, I mean, I haven't actually had much sketchiness. And I think a lot of that's just like before I travel somewhere, I make sure, like I'll call Kaiser and make sure I have all the shots that I need and stuff like that. I learned that my ADD medicine, in certain Asian countries, it's like a felony to have it. And I wasn't even, I heard that from a friend who also has ADHD. So that was me not being prepared. But I think in general, you can just be like, oh, I'm American, sorry. Americans are dumb, right?
You've heard the rumor, right? Well, it's true.
Most people will let you off. But yeah, I think that what the shift was, because you asked when it was that I was kind of realizing this was going to be a longer thing.
Yeah.
When I was there in Sardinia, because I've been doing videos this whole time, and eventually once I'm done, I plan to like string them into a full length kind of film situation. And I was shooting one of my videos there, and it's just been like a video journal basically. And I was realizing like I don't want to go back to Littleton, because I was coming up on the 3-week mark, and I was like, I don't want to go back to Littleton next week and just like kind of like packing it in from your big adventure and just going back to normal.
That thing you did one time, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be like going back to the Shire,
Yeah.
That's why Bilbo did all that stuff that he did afterwards. But basically, what I did is I set this financial threshold. So like when I left for my trip, I had probably like $100,000 in my bank account. And what I said is like, if my bank account balance goes below $80,000, then I'll stop traveling. And if I can keep it above that, then I'll keep traveling until it goes below that. And so it changed the whole concept of like savings and stuff for me, because instead of it being me putting away money for something that maybe I'll eventually do with it, it instead becomes like this thing that as long as I can keep making the money that I need to make, then I can keep doing this thing I want to do.
Right.
And so I made that decision while I was there. And that way it's not me being unreasonable, because I wouldn't want to spend myself into the ground and then be destitute and then go home or something like that.
Right.
And so it was there in Sardinia when I was having this great experience. I was meeting a ton of new people. I was making all this internal growth. And it was there that I really kind of embraced the idea of not going back. And it's not an easy thing to embrace. And like this last time I was home, when I got rid of my apartment and got rid of my car and all that stuff, like that's, I think I still haven't fully released those emotions and stuff yet, because it is, obviously I can go buy an apartment whenever I want, and I can stay with friends, I can stay with family, I can get an Airbnb when I visit town. Like I can do all those things, and I know that I'm not actually homeless because I have money and I can go get an apartment. But it's still just like that was my last little piece of normality that I was kind of holding on to. And so to get rid of that, it's kind of like this subconscious statement that I'm really embracing this, right?
Right.
So that's, I think it was in Sardinia, which was only a few weeks after starting traveling, that I got enough of a taste of it that I decided this is what I want to keep doing. I don't want it to stop right now.
Right.
So there's your answer to that.
Awesome. That's exciting, dude. So thrilled to watch it all happen. And so what's the plan now? You've sold everything. You basically cut the ties. You're a citizen of the world now. What do you do with that?
I don't know. That's what's weird. It's like a lot of what I've been working on is just being able to be present. And some of like the codependency that I've been working on with myself is like I always try to I have a tendency to overthink a lot of the time, and to not necessarily overplan, but I'll run through all the possible scenarios or all the things a person might say or all the things that might happen so I can make sure I'm prepared. And it's all kind of like trying to control life. And a lot of what I've been embracing is just kind of releasing and trusting myself and other people and God, the universe, whatever, that shit's just going to work out if I'm prepared and I'm approaching it out of love and instead of fear and stuff. And so...
And you keep that $80K in the bank.
Yeah, also that.
I have faith in the $80K.
Yeah. What else do you really need? And so, in the past, I've always made sure I had some goal I was aspiring towards, or I had something that I needed to be working on that I wasn't currently. And lately I've been kind of, I don't know actually what's next. And it's weird because it's something I'm not accustomed to, because typically I know exactly what I want to be working on for the next few years or whatever.
Yeah.
But right now I'm really not sure. So that's kind of not a very good answer. But
that's interesting. Well, it's kind of maybe the best answer, because that's the theme of this, is like just giving in to the moment and not waiting around for better instructions, because who's supposed to give those to you?
Yeah.
There's nobody better.
That's true.
So awesome. Well, in keeping true to then I've really enjoyed this. We're at the normal time for this podcast, but I knew we'd go a little long just because this is such an amazing story, and I know it's going to inspire a lot of people. So thank you for being here and sharing it. And I also want to ask you on a more practical level, and keeping true to the format of the show. So Zach Swinehart, what is the one thing you've tried in your marketing that produced the most surprising results?
So my answer, this is the one that in the pre-interview I was not sure if you'd like. But the thing that I've tried that had the most surprising results was actually not focusing so much on marketing and instead focusing on product quality. Because back in the day, like 5-ish years ago kind of time, I would always like bounce from marketing strategy to marketing strategy, just trying to figure out different ways to bring new business in. Mm-hmm. And I was doing sites for too cheap then, so I was always having to get them out the door to get new business. Mm. And a shift I made when I got my job and I didn't need the money from my business anymore, I made the shift where I said, well, now I'm going to just always focus just on doing a really, really, really good job, like doing a better job than people expected. And that one decision carried out over the following years has been the single thing that's resulted in being able to run a 6-figure business just on word of mouth. And it makes sense. People see the site I did for Entrepreneur on Fire, and it's a great site, and they want that same thing.
Right.
And they like their own site, so they want to tell people about it and stuff. So I'd say that the thing that surprised me the most was how much of an impact it was to actually not just look at marketing as the solution, and that product quality and service quality have a lot to do with incoming business beyond the actual actions I was taking to get new business.
Excellent. I love that. It's a great thing to do, and it's a great outcome. And, especially I think for a designer where visually your calling card, the proof is everywhere you
it's all the pudding I throw around.
That's well, I mean, like say with a copywriter, copywriters are a little less.
It's less attributed to you.
Yeah, right, and they don't share. They're not great at having a portfolio, and it's like if they come from a referral and there's trust there, you can have a conversation with a copywriter and sense if they're qualified for you or not. Right? With a designer, there's so much of the art to it that you've just got to look. It'd be crazy for a designer not to be able to show you the work they did. And so I think it's brilliant for you to go, I want people to only see stellar work. And like you said, if they're proud of it, they're going to show it to everybody and a lot of people who also would want the same thing. Yeah. So it's the best way to get referrals without having to ask for them.
Agreed.
Very cool. All right, Zach Swinehart, this was a blast as the final flight descends into the Puerto Rico airport.
Yeah, it was good timing on that.
I thank you for sharing this. Thrilled to watch your continuing adventure. We'll have to do a follow-up and see, if you land somewhere, if you end up falling in love with one of these people you're having random sex with.
I already did that and then broke up, and now I'm traveling again.
Oh, really?
Yes. We'll do a follow-up.
Wow. There's a romance novel going here. Where is your Facebook profile public so anybody listening to this could come watch these videos and see your adventures?
Yeah, people can stalk me, I'm pretty sure, without being friends with me.
All right, so ZachSwinehart, Zach Swinehart on Facebook. Go follow his worldly adventures and be inspired. Don't wait around for somebody to tell you how. Just decide it's what you need to do.
Yeah,
thanks.
And most of it, by the way, will be on my ZachSwinehart.com blog.
Oh, you have a blog there as well.
Yeah.
Even better, go there, ZachSwinehart.com blog. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kev.
See you. Hey, thanks again for listening to the Truth About Marketing podcast. If you like this show and you think other people would like this show, the best way to spread the word is by reviewing and rating the show in iTunes. Just log in, click review, leave a big old fat 5-star review, and let everybody know that you dig the show so that they can dig it too. To get all the links and resources we mentioned on today's episode, please go to copychief.com/TAM, as in Truth About Marketing. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your sales copy with templates, formulas, coaching, feedback, or hiring a pro, do all that on the inside of the members area of copychief.com, and I will look for you there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. For listening, 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 we'll see you next time.